So thanks everyone for joining us today. This is our first ever WinAdmins live event. We have Adam Gross here today, who's going to talk about managing any device anywhere, and a lot about the admin service, and probably a whole bunch of other things he's going to kind of sprinkle in the middle. It's going to run for about an hour, give or take. And then at the wrap up, we'll have some information on a survey that we're hoping you'll join. If you have questions as we go along, there's a Q&A section. It's moderated Q&A, so some of them we'll answer privately and some publicly. And we want to give you a quick intro to who we are, and we won't read this verbatim, but for those of you who are not members of the WinAdmins group, basically just somewhere around 3,000 geeks who like to talk all day about a whole bunch of emerging technologies. If you're not a member and you can, we invite you to join us. If you don't want to join us, that's fine. You can follow us on Twitter, see upcoming events. We're hoping to do about one of these every month. If you have questions about the group, you can catch us on Twitter. You can post the questions here in the Q&A, and somebody will try and answer you privately, or find us online just about any other way. Two quick anticipated questions. So interacting with the speaker, like we said, is through the Q&A only. It's a live event, and it is recorded, but we'll do the best we can to answer all the ones publicly, and anything we can't either privately or after the event's over. And with that, Adam Gross, you ready for me to turn it over to you? Adam, you are muted.
Hey, how about that?
You are. Perfect.
All right. Whew. All right. Hopefully that's the only technical difficulties we have today. Oh, I'm showing the wrong presentation. There we go. All right. Things, magic. And see, there we go. I don't like slides. I'm just going to do it this way. Hi, I'm Adam Gross. Thanks for having me. This is so strange talking to a monitor camera, not being able to see your faces and get your reactions to tell me how awful my jokes are. But I know they're bad anyway, so I don't really need that. Anyway, I'm Adam Gross. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Enterprise Mobility. And today I'd like to talk to you about the Configuration Manager Administration Service and why it's important, and all of the cool, amazing things that are happening behind the scenes with it, and why you should be digging into it, looking at it, understanding how it works, because it is the future, and I hope to show you some futuristic things today. So before I get started, I just want to give a shout out to Mr. Kibble there. So Chris Kibble is one of the coolest guys I know. Met him through the WinAdmins channel, and honestly, I don't think I'd be where I am today without the WinAdmins community and those guys. Or people, sorry, not guys. It's all guys and girls. But anyway, if you are not signed up and using Discord today, using the WinAdmins Discord, do it. It's one of the best communities available. These guys have been, just on there nonstop, sharing information, collaborating, and just a wonderful community to be part of. You can sign up just by aka.ms/WinAdmins, and it does magic things. It'll take you to the Discord, sign up, and get you in there. So do that today. It's awesome. Also, from back to Mr. Kibble, just because I like Chris, you should check out logsloth.com. You can upload your config manager logs or other logs, and it will parse them and make them pretty for you and readable. So it's really cool, nice lightweight utility, and it's fantastic. So do that. A little bit about me. This is my site, asquaredozen.com, where I do all my blogging, and then I also have sysmansquad.com, where you can come and blog or mentor or collaborate with us, and we are a part of the WinAdmins community, so you can all of our collaboration happens within the Discord as well. So check those out. On asquaredozen.com, you'll find a landing page for the Config Manager Admin Service, where I need to update this guide with a lot of the stuff I'm going to show you today, but this is a great starting point to get going. I've got some links to community resources and other things that are out there about the administration service if you haven't already seen that stuff. So also Chris gave me the shirt because I wrote a really nasty SQL query about cross-apply, and I love my shirt. Thanks, Chris. All right, that's enough about Chris. Let's talk about the admin service. So we're going to talk about WMI and how that ties into the admin service. We're going to and talk about what the admin service is. And then we're going to look at tenant attach. Spoiler, it's tied in with admin service. And then we'll do a bunch of demos that hopefully will work. I struggled with my lab a bit last night, so hopefully we will have some successes. So just as a level set, so from a WMI perspective, so WMI is a provider that comes built into Windows that really originated from, or at least to a large degree, it was the direction of WMI was driven by the creation of ConfigMgr, SMS, and they needed a way to store data and do things to interact with the SMS engine, which is, if you're new to ConfigMgr, SMS is what it used to be called. The colloquial term is slow-moving software. Anyway, the WMI has a set of what are they called? Providers. So you'll have a registry provider, a SQL provider, things like that, and all of those pieces will interact with the OS, and it's a centralized way to be able to access data from the system. So for instance, in ConfigMgr, they use a registry provider, and so certain classes in WMI will reference use the registry provider to dynamically deliver information directly from the registry as part of the WMI. So you can query WMI and say, okay, I want Win32 BIOS. Now this one's not stored in the, I don't believe this one's in the registry, but if it was, you could just come and query Win32 BIOS instead of trying to figure out what the registry key is and all that sort of stuff that you need to dig into. So that's just a kind of an awful explanation of what WMI is. So it's an engine that allows you to centrally access data about a system without having to go to all the different places where that data is stored. So like one of the things is, like, if your hardware vendor has custom BIOS information, they can make a provider that ties into WMI to expose their information about their BIOS using a custom DLL provider on the back end. And so you could query from using their DLL, but you just do it straight through WMI. So you're not having to handle multiple different ways to query the data. So that being said, so this is WMI Explorer. Shout out to Vinay Pemnani. He's on the Microsoft PSS team. So he does Config Manager support and Intune support and all sorts of other cool things. But he wrote this tool, and it's just a great way to visually dig through WMI. And so I always like using it because it's easy to find classes and things and just graphically dig through. So what I'm doing here is, I was in the CMV2. This is your main like inventory node, but if I go down on your Config Manager site server, you have a node called root SMS, and then it'll be root SMS site _ and then your site code that for your Config Manager site. And once you get here, these are all the classes that tie into things that you use in Config Manager. A lot of them, most of them, are tied directly to using SQL providers. And so if I look for one called, let's say, SMSR system, let's see if it will query quickly enough for me here. It does take a minute. Okay, so SMSR system is the main system class. And so if I look at that, I can see all of my instances of objects, and then I can see all the information that is tied to those. And so I can also look at the properties of the class and dig into information about it. You can figure out what the data types are, all those sorts of things. So all that said is you can, this thing pops out a nice WQL query, so WQL or WQL query. This is how you would query WMI from that. Or if you open up SQL, I want to show you the equivalent. So some of this may be remedial for other folks, so just hang tight. I just want to make sure that we get a good basis for what we're doing here with this. So essentially, we can query WMI that way, or if I come into PowerShell, I can hopefully get this to work because I was struggling a minute ago. So I can query using get WMI object, and so I'm telling it I want to query the same class name that we were just looking at, and so if I query that, I can just get a full list of my results, or if you can do a query parameter or something and make it so I could just paste in the query that I just had in WMI and achieve the same thing but filter it down. So different ways to do it. So then there's sim, which if you ever move to PowerShell 7, you can't do WMI. Get WMI object doesn't exist. You have to use get sim instance. So if I run that one, you'll see I get a block of the same data. It's formatted slightly differently, but essentially the same result set. And then, so before I get to those cool ones, let's do this. So I'm going to connect to SQL and go to the database, CMPS1, do a new query. All right, select star from VR system, and we can see the same results here. And in fact, inside of SQL, there is should be a corresponding, should be V SMS R, I think it's going to be R system. Yeah. Okay. So this is actually the query, or the yeah. This is the view that WMI is actually using to return its result set to us here. So SMSR system maps over to VSMSR system, and then VR system, if you open up this view, you'll see that it ties in to, it uses this view to create its view. So it's a layer upon layer of things. Okay, so that's how it works today. So let's talk about admin service. So the admin service is a web API, and it sits on top of both WMI and the ConfigMgr database. And so if I want to come into the admin service and query SMSR system, this is querying WMI using the admin service. Now, this is the way it actually would return. I've got a extension added to clean it up to make it human readable somewhat, but this is a JSON result set which contains all of the same information that we were just seeing using WMI directly. And so currently today, there are two routes in the WMI or in the admin service, and one queries WMI directly and one queries SQL directly and uses the OData feed. And OData is just a formatting standard for web API data sets. So if I go back into my PowerShell, I'm going to run the same query that we just had there in the browser. Hope this works. That should work. So you'll see I've got the URL. It's just parameterized here to give us that URL. If I hit that, it does just take just a little bit longer to do. Hope it's not much longer. Well, anyway, you saw it in the browser. It'll come in PowerShell in a minute, but it'll format it nicely for us as well here and have the same result set. Okay, so that did not work, but oh, shoot, that's why, my bad. I had a different server spun up the other day. Okay, there it is. That'll explain it. Okay, so there we go. So we get the same result set from the admin service. Oh, sorry, I'll slow down on the scroll. Got this new fancy mouse. So same deal there. And then just to close the loop here, if we use the config manager PowerShell commandlets, this is not the right one. Once we get connected to our config manager site, which is, you can generate this from the config manager admin console, which I don't have open. So this blob is just, there's a button to click, and I'll show when that loads. So then you just do get cm computer, I think it's computer or cm device. There it is. So I can just do get cm device and name CM01. I'm just going to return the single because it is a bit slower. So you can see, you know, 4 different ways to pull the same data. And so the idea here is that just, you know, really just illustrate, you can get this data, and this is 4 ways within PowerShell, but then you can also do it from SQL, and you can also do it through Power BI and other things. So anyway, that's kind of the basics of getting data out of Config Manager in general. So where's my admin console? Come on, it's hung up. All right, so let's get to the cool bits about the admin service. So I mentioned that there's 2 routes. So one is the v1.0 route. And if we hit that, we will get a list of entities, and we can collapse those down if we want to. But so you'll see it'll say, so the name, sensor event update time, console admins, data, hub items, reports, Power BI report, etc. Okay, so these are all new. You may recognize some of these as like some of the newer features. So like hub items, that's Community Hub. Power BI report, that's going to be the Power BI report server. You may have seen in tenant attach, you can get like CM pivot status, you can run scripts in there. So you can see all those sorts of things inside of or using the versioned route from AdminService. And if I want to see what all things are available for it, using the OData syntax. So if you want to know, like if you're trying to figure out, well, how do I query it this, how do I filter it? OData is just a standard. I think it's just odata.org even. Yep. And the admin service uses OData 4.0, and so you can come here and find the syntax for using OData. You can look at how the syntax works and everything. So takes a little bit to kind of dig through it, but I've got some examples on my blog. Nathan Zienert has some examples on his, and I think there's a couple other folks as well. But it'll show you how to string stuff together to be able to build out relationships of things if you want to get down to that level of things. But so if I add this metadata tag, this metadata tag will produce an XML document that will show me the properties of each entity, including the key value. The ID is going to be the key value for this. And then I can see all the different properties and the property types on each of those things. You can also, you used to be able to do this. I mean, technically you still can, but a number of objects in the WMI route blows up the browser when you try to query this. And so I'm not going to do that because I know it's just going to hang the browser and be useless anyway. But if you were to do this like in run this, do invoke REST method metadata. So if you go in, you could do an invoke REST method using that URI and output that to to a text file or something, so you could actually dig through it and that kind of deal. So just trust me that actually works. But the point here is that you can get a similar list that include from the WMI side of things, which includes all of the methods that are available for the item. So if I scroll all the way to the bottom down here, we can see these functions. And what's cool about the functions is every release of Config Manager that has come out with AdminService in it, if you come here and you look at the metadata, you can see all of the new functions that allow you to do more than just read. So from the WMI side, it's pretty much read-only at this point. They're adding things, but in the tech preview, you can actually run WMI methods So like an example of a WMI method would be if of course, I'm not going to find one on those guys. Actually, it might, but let's see. Come on. Let's see. If you just click on any of these guys, you'll see a methods box pop open. So if I wanted to do that, I could do execute method get summary. Well, that means that if I found this same class in the admin service, I should be able to run the same method get summary on this through the admin service through the URL. But I'm not going to get into that with the just for lack of time, and that requires using the tech preview generally to make that stuff work anyway. But ultimately, currently in current branch, all of these functions exist. Now, some of them are built to only work internally as part of like the console. So this is a great one. So update console heartbeat. So it ties directly into your Config Manager console. If we go to administration, go to security, and we go to console connections. So for every console that's connected, you will get a heartbeat that comes in, and it will tell you which thing you're using that made it show up. So this one is using the Microsoft Configuration Management to do the heartbeat. And if I actually watch the logs, you'll be able to see, and I'll get into the logs in more in depth in a minute. But just tie that up so you can see this. When I just opened up that node, it ran this query, this URL, to populate the list that we saw in the console. So it's already, the admin service is tied into the console. So that's all I did, was just copied the URL out of the log, and now I can see the data that's being used to populate this particular view in the console. But then to the data from the client side, as I'm using the console, my console will use the console connections heartbeat job to populate the data as well. So let me find that. Was that update console heartbeat? So if I take that and I search up. Oh, wrong log. Where'd it go? Is that the right log? Well, trust me, it'll show up there eventually. I'm not sure why it's not there yet, but I may have boogered up or filled the log up with too much stuff and it rolled. But anyway, you'll see that happening in the background. And so that's part of what's happening, is that they're using the admin service. So a lot of the new features that we're seeing, they're adding on to the versioned route and not the WMI side of things. The WMI piece, from the way that I've been told about this from the product group, is that eventually the whole WMI route will not be sitting. It won't be admin service WMI SQL. It's just they're going to take WMI out of the middle, and we're going to go admin service to SQL directly and get rid of WMI as the middleman. And I think that's pretty cool, because then that opens up the possibility, because WMI is limited into what it can do. The SQL or the querying functionality and all sorts of things are very limited, and so it will allow them to be able to extend that well beyond where the original framework for WMI. Okay, so functions. I'll kind of wrap this one up here. So one of the cool ones here is you can do run CM pivot. So I can come here and I can look and see that run CM pivot has one parameter of input query and another parameter of binding parameter, which in this case, this is in the syntax. Whenever you'll see it when I write it, this means that I'm going to be passing an object in and then calling the function on the object. And so I'll be passing in a device object. So it's bound to it via the URL. So that's not going to be an item that I pass to this function directly. So to make it easy to see, I'm going to clear. This is Fiddler. You may also have used Postman in the past. Postman, there's an authentication thing with Postman that prevents it from working properly with AdminService. So this is a good workaround. The devs mentioned this, that, oh yeah, just go use this to make that happen. So I'm going to turn on capture traffic. And then what I've done is I've got the composer view open here. And let's see, I don't know if I can zoom the whole thing in or not. I guess not. That's all right. I will do some zoom in. Okay, so that looks worse. You can, inside your Teams window, you can actually, I think, like shift scroll or something, and you can actually zoom in your own window if you need it. So sorry. Anyway, so we've kind of seen the syntax here. So we're going to do AdminService v1.0, and then we're going to say we're going to get device, and hopefully you're familiar with a resource ID. So this is the device's primary identifier in the database, and so this is my server. And so when I was talking about that binding parameter, that's what this is. So if I just run this directly in the browser, this is going to get me a single device. Okay, so now I get a single device, and it's going to pass this device object to the function run cmpivot. Now, the trick here is I can't run this from the URL. This is why we're in Fiddler. You have to pass it a body, and that body contains my query that we want to run. So I want to run the operating system cmpivot query. Okay. And I'm realizing that maybe you've not seen cmpivot before either. So let me just pull that up. So I'll show you the equivalent. So I'm trying to draw the correlation between this and that so that you can hopefully put the pieces together and say, oh, okay, this is, I'm familiar with this. And so just replace it with AdminService and magic. Okay, so I just right clicked on the device, by the way, and you can now do single device targeting with cmpivot. You don't have to target a whole collection, which used to be a thing. So I can do a query called operating system. Okay, and that's the whole syntax. So this is the sixth way to query this same data. So instead of select star from operating system, you just do operating system, and you can scroll down, and these are all the classes available that you can query from. And then you can do Custo query language, KQL, to build out the syntax. But for the purpose of this demo, we're just going to keep it simple and just do operating system, which will get us the data that we want. Okay, so now we get, when it's gray, it means that it's pulling the data from current inventory. And when it turns black, it will be complete. So it does take a minute, because what it's doing is it's sending the command down to the local device and running a PowerShell script to collect the data and then send it back to the database. So now we got our result. All right, so now if I want to do operating system using AdminService, so if I had a longer Custo query, I would do more, but you can see here, so it's curly braces, and then it's a double quote, and then it's input query, which is what we saw was the parameter name from the metadata that we were looking at, and then just our query. So in this case, it's just operating system, but it could be the full query string if you had a more complex query string, and that's it. Okay, so we want to send that body in, and the one key here is you have to put content type application/JSON, and this is specifically you need that anytime you query it programmatically. You always need that the application type, but inside the composer in Fiddler, you need to also check this box, automatically authenticate. So it does a pass through, like it's going to do an attempt to authenticate you, and then it's going to jump to the URL that you specified. So I'm going to hit execute. And what we see is I'm not getting anything inside of my window here, because this is just the composer pane. So then I can see my actual queries here. So you'll see I got three things ran, 3 hits. So you can see where it passed in my JSON, or if I did a header, I could see my application content or content type application JSON, and then I can see the result. So in this case, it said I was 401 unauthorized, and this is where I was talking about the hop. So then on this next one, it should then pick up a cookie and pass that in as my authentication token. And at that point, so I get a 401, so over here, I'm getting a 401, and then I get the 200. And so that's my good status. So it said, oh, I'm not authenticated. Let me get a token and send that in with the request. And then now it's sending in. So each time it's sending in the body, the JSON body. If we look at the raw data, this is actually how it sends it in. And so this is what we just had typed into the box, or the composer. And then down at the bottom here is our result. Whoa, yeah, okay, well, you get the idea. So these are all of our results set for that query. So that's how that works within using Fiddler. And so I wrote the same thing in PowerShell. And so just to break that down a little bit, and I feel like I might need to just change my theme color to make it a little bit easier to read. I hope it's easier to read, maybe. Okay, so I'm just getting an input for a site server and the device ID. So the same device, I'm setting up my URL that we're calling. So we want to hit the v1.0 route, and then same query, operating system, and I'm creating my body right here. So I'm doing input query, and then I'm passing in the operating system as that body, and then I'm going to run it. So if I put a breakpoint there and I run this, well, thank you for that, Visual Studio, or VS Code, whatever you are today. I think I need to get out of this provider. There we go. Let's try that again. Okay, so if I pause here, I can get my CMPivot parameters. And so you can see this is the full URL, and then I can see the body. If I was to expand that out, we'd have our body that we've got there. Okay, so then I'm going to let that proceed. And then I've got a loop function here that is attempting to see if we have a result from the query yet. So if we go over to the log, we can actually watch the log, and you can see each time. Actually, I missed telling you one piece there, but I'll get back to that. So it's giving me a 404 not found, 404 not found, because there's no result yet. There's no result, and now we get a 200 OK. And when we finally get the 200 OK, we get the result spit out into a grid view. Or if we go back into PowerShell, this is the result that it dumped out. So I can just go and grab that here and run the result. So you can see we got the result nicely formatted. And that. So what I should have mentioned, when you run CMPivot, it returns a result object, and if you open up that result object, it contains a member property that has operation ID. So then you can so then the next round is get CMPivot result, and you pass it in the operation ID from the operation we just ran, and then it's checking like we just saw in loops. So that's how that CMPivot thing is working. Okay, so hopefully you get the idea. It's a web service, and it's querying things, and it can do things and can run functions and stuff. So if we go back to this, there are more and more things that are starting to show up in the v1.0 side of things. I still have been struggling to get into the WMI side to see what all is new there for the most recent stuff, so I don't really have a ton to share there. So they may have added some functionality for some of that. But what's neat here is that you can kind of look at these and say, oh, well, these are things that might be showing up in tenant attach. And so let's go take a peek at tenant attach and see if we can see some cool things here. So tenant attach is a new option that you could enable starting in 2002. Cloud services. It's part of it's on co-management, but it is not co-management. So to be really clear there, they are two separate things. They perform two complementary sets of things. For instance, you cannot co-manage. I mean, well, technically that's true too. You can't manage servers in Intune, but you can tenant attach a server and do stuff in the cloud with it. And so think of your Intune portal or the MIMAC, the MIM Admin Center, as being a web console for Config Manager. So if you go into your co-management settings, there's a new option that is configure upload. Pretty sure that's the right one. Yeah. And if you enable this box, upload to Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center, what this does is this syncs your device objects into the MIM Admin Center, so endpoint.microsoft.com, and it will add all of your Config Manager devices into the console. And so we get different classifications in here, and I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on what these mean. Some of them are relatively self-explanatory, but you'll see I have co-managed devices, but then I have other, I did not mean to do that. I have other devices that are managed by Config Manager, and so those are your tenant attached devices. So if I go and look at this machine we've been picking on, it is a Config Manager device, and it has these somewhat familiarly named actions that you can take on it. So these sync Config Manager policies on the device. And it's like, well, why would I want my server exposed to the internet? That's a good question. Thanks for asking. It's not. So what happens is when you do tenant attach, it's attaching to the Config Manager gateway service that's running on your tenant. And it's not the same as your cloud management gateway. So it's using the same terminology, but they're different. So just to be real clear here, to enable tenant attach, you go check that box, and then there's a microservice that gets added that you have to add permissions for, and just follow the docs. I'm not going to go show you the microservice. And what it does is the MIM Admin Center can proxies through your Config Manager server to perform actions on a client device. So I have opened up the logs. So this is on the primary server. This is the CM Gateway Notification Worker log. So this is CM Gateway, not CMG Gateway. So it's the Config Manager Gateway. So just want to clarify, because there are CMG logs as well in the logs folder. Let me just show them side by side so you get what I'm saying here. So there are CMG, CMG, and then the CM Gateway. So they are different. And there's an upload worker, and then there's the notification worker. So the sync upload worker is the one that should be uploading your devices and data to, keeping your things in sync in your Azure or in your MIM Admin Center console. At least I'm pretty sure that's what that's doing. A lot of this stuff is just I'm just making educated guesses on not a lot of it, but some of it at least. Some of it I've actually got confirmation. But anyway, let's get back on target here. Okay, so inside here I can see the CM Gateway Notification Worker. I've also got the BGB server log open in the same folder. BGB, if you're not familiar, stands for Big Green Button, and it is also referred to as the fast channel. And it's a quick, the fast client notification channel, so we can trigger things on a client rapidly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to demo what happens from tenant attach when you click one of those buttons. Okay, so if we go into, let's see, this is on the server, so those logs. So I'm looking for my client logs now for the Config Manager client on the primary server, so it's in a different location than normal. And then there should be a CCM notification agent. I believe this is going to be the one that's going to do it for us. So what's going to happen is we're going to click the button, and the tenant is going to send a notification through the gateway down to the config manager server, and that's going to be handled by the CM gateway notification worker. That worker will field that request, and then it will hand off to the appropriate service on the config manager side. And I'm going to show you another one that does it a different way, because there's multiple things that happen. So in this case, the sync process will hand off the notification over to the BGB service, and then it will trigger the notification on the client. Before I click it, I will show you in the console, the equivalent of that is taking that, going to a device and right-clicking on client actions, right-clicking on the device, everything's slow. Client notification. So all of these notifications use the fast channel. In fact, the run script, start CM pivot, install application, all the client diagnostics, all of these things use the and even this new collect client logs. That's using the admin service to do this. So these all use that fast channel, and so that's going to be the one way that we're going to trigger that through this. So this will be equivalent to right-clicking and clicking that option. So I'm going to hit sync machine policy and send it down. Now it's going to give us a pending status. If I go over to my not that one. So I go to my log here, and so we just clicked it, and we're getting a notification. And where are we at? Okay, so forward BGB remote task. So forward to the BGB remote task with this template to one targeted device. Okay, so that's telling me that it's forwarding that notification over to the BGB server service. And if we go look at the BGB server service and we look at the same time, get one push message from database, starting to send the push task. Okay, so you don't have to understand what all this stuff means, just to understand that we can see the, well, I keep missing the holding control there, but we can see that it reported one client, and so it's already done. The client has already reported back and said, yep, I got it, thanks. So if I go on the client log, it shows me received task from server push ID, and so the client got the notification from the BGB agent, did the thing, and has sent a notification back. So we're looking at push ID 6204 and push ID 6204, and then it's sending that status back up to the admin service, or through the to the MIM admin center. And in a minute, it will refresh this and tell us that it got the successful result back from the device. So it does take a minute for that status to show back up here. So that's using the BGB channel. So then we've been messing with CM pivot, and but sorry, let me back up. It's using the BGB channel, but it is still using the admin service over the cloud. Not the cloud gateway, the CM gateway that's in your tenant. So one more time on CM pivot, we're going to hit run from here. So I think this is pretty awesome. You can run CM pivot from the cloud. So I can run that, and if I go watch my log here, you'll see that I got the same query that we were running a minute ago. On our own, it got an admin service request. Whatever, me and Zoom it. So you can see it ran that same request, and then this is how I actually figured out the logic that I needed to do for the operation ID. I said, oh well, look, that's what it's sending to get the operation ID, and then oh, it's getting 404. I thought I was having issues, and then realized it was looping, and then it eventually gets the success message somewhere here that we get the notification 200 OK. There it is. And so then I know it got the results back, and so I can come back into the console and I can see the results there. So where am I going with that? I lost my train of thought on where I was headed with that one. But anyway, we can see this, that CM pivot did its thing, ran the job. Oh, that's where I was trying to go. Sorry, this log, the admin service log. So we can see the operation occurring on the oh, there's that heartbeat. See, there it is. Service update console heartbeat. That's the one. So if we go down the end, we can see in the admin service logs, we can see the 400, then we can see the 200. So what's great is as you're running these queries and you're testing things out, you can just watch the admin service log to see what's going on, what's happening. Or if you need to cheat and figure out, well, how are they doing it? Go watch the logs as you do these things. So in tenant attach, you can dynamically install applications. So I can click an app. Actually, that's telling me, yeah, so I can click install, and in a minute, that's going to send over the installation of Google Chrome to my server, which is kind of cool. All right, so I'm almost out of time, so I want to make sure I do this other thing. So just to do the, okay, let's see. Sorry, I'm switching inputs on my device here. So we can make this happen. Come on, come on, come on. Go. Okay, it's making me log in. Stand by 1 second. I can't talk and type though, so please wait. Come on. All right, well, okay, while I'm logging in on my phone over here, I'm going to, well, I'm just going to log in on my phone because, okay, yes, okay, there we go. Sorry. So, did you know you can hit the admin center from your phone? It's kind of cool. So a couple months ago, DJam, David James, tweeted this out, a video of someone running CM Pivot from their phone. And when this was in preview, sorry, this is really tiny. Let's see. So it has to be, it is case sensitive. Computer system, and done. And then I'm going to hit run. And now we're doing it from my phone. And if I do a side-by-side view, I can watch the log and I can see that new request coming through as well. So same deal. I mean, you've already seen this. It's doing the same thing every time. But that's pretty cool, right? So the thing I always envisioned was the admin service, the whole point of the admin service was to make ConfigMgr extendable into the cloud, to make it work in the cloud, to, you know, the whole concept, manage any device anywhere. Well, so we're starting to see that they're building out this cloud console for us. And so we're getting ConfigMgr web interface, and that's pretty neat. Well, the other day, me and Nathan Zener were messing around with this, and we decided to see if we could set up an Azure App Proxy and see if we could expose this through that. If you're not familiar with Azure App Proxies, join the club. I'm not either, but essentially there is a, if you go into your Azure console and go to Enterprise Applications, you can create a, you have to set up a connector. So I've already downloaded the connector service, but this is where you would start. You download connector service, and then I'm going to show you that process of standing up and how quickly you can expose any of your, well, that did not finish uninstalling. Great. Let's take a minute. Okay, so that works. So you can expose any of your internal web applications. I say any, I mean, it's the ability is there. You have to configure things a certain way for authentication, permissions and stuff. So all we're doing is we're setting up a proxy connector, and I don't even believe this has to run on a specific server. It just needs to exist in your tenant, and then your tenant and your applications will know that it exists, and you can configure additional connector groups and all that sort of stuff with it. and I'm going to try to log in. And so all it's going to do is it just needs my credentials one time to, as a global admin or whatever. I'm a GA. I don't know if you can do it with lower level credentials. And it's going to register my server here as a valid proxy connector point for devices to, or for applications to communicate through. And so it's essentially just being, forwarding on your web interface onto the internet, exposing it with an external URL. So then I'm going to click on Configure App, and you saw the servers were no status yet, and so it's going to take a minute for us to get that going. So then I'm going to do a so this is WinAdmins demo, and I'm going to do the same. The internal URL, sorry, is going to be HTTPS, and just for ease of use, we're just going to do .asd.net. All right, so we're just going to hit the root URL. And so here's my new external URL. I'm going to say that I don't want pre-auth, but you probably should. I'm going to do pass-through for now. And then we're going to hit add. And yeah, that's fine. It doesn't see my connector yet. Hopefully that thing registers quickly. So I have asked, let's see if this will work. Let's send Mr. Kibble, if you're still watching. I'm texting in the chat there the URL, and in fact, well, once I prove that it's working, I'll publish it up. But let's see. Default needs at least one active connector. Okay, so we need to go back to our connector and make sure that it's talking, because we did turn it on. We just need it to sync. Oh, come on, please work. There are logs for it. I don't want to go look at them. Whoa. There it is. Okay, so now we're active. Okay, so you have to be active for this to work. And then we're going to go back and find our app. If we go to all applications, we'll see, should be the WinAdmins demo. Everything's slowing down all of a sudden. So go WinAdmins demo. Hopefully now it sees that we have that we are connected. And then you can configure permissions and all sorts of things here. I'm not here to show you about how to use app proxy. So if this worked, we should be able to hit that URL and get to IIS directly. Okay, so if you're playing along at home, try it. Doesn't require anything, I'm pretty sure. Now you won't be able to get to the next piece on your own, but so now I've just opened a browser on my workstation or on my presenter machine, not in the lab. And so this is the internet. And so I'm an internet connected device. I hit AdminService, I'm gonna hit V 1.0. And now it's going to ask me for my username and password for the lab. Okay. So it does have at least some level of credentialing enabled here. And I will absolutely say that don't do this in your production environment, please, unless you understand what the implications of what you're doing there. This was just general proof of concept, just goofing around, trying to see what we could do with this stuff. So as you can see, I have now successfully connected with, I've exposed my admin service to the internet. Well, that's pretty cool, because you could then build applications, custom applications on the admin service that you could then deliver to your your support staff via browser or other mechanism. And now I did discover, at least with this, because it requires Windows auth, I can't get it to work on my phone. Otherwise, that would have been a really cool thing to show. I can get to IIS on my phone, but I can't actually get to this piece. So so I was going to get Chris to share his screen and show that he can get to it as well. But I don't know if you trust me that, I mean, if you can hit this from your browser right now, then that should give you a good indication that that this is working. So I'm actually posting. So I'm posting that URL in the chat right now, so you can hit that. And in fact, whatever, we're going to just do this. I want to see if this works. So I want as many of you as can do it, please, to that's the username and the password. And I've never done this, so I don't know if this is just gonna be the worst idea ever. But I want you guys to all hit this URL if you can. So I posted the second one. Now I'm gonna have to wait because there's a tape delay, but I'm gonna sit here and watch. I'm gonna have the logs open, so it's gonna be a delay between me sending you the message and you actually being able to do this in your browser. But let's see how many hits we get here. There we go. Look, there's super. So that's pretty dang cool. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, 5. There we go. We're still going. So that's pretty cool, I think. So that's pretty much the end of the demo. And I have not been, obviously I haven't been looking over at the chat or anything like that. So Chris, if there's if there's questions that are pending that I need to answer, I'm certainly happy to attempt to answer or show any additional clarification or any of those things.
Yeah, why don't we try and do a quick speed round? I think, okay, if we go over a minute or two, it's being recorded anyway. So you don't need to demo anything, but maybe just a quick answer, or say you don't know, or say you'll blog about it. So the first one was, when you upload devices via tenant attached, does it enroll them in Azure AD?
It won't. I don't know that answer actually. Let's see. And then my lab's not a good place to test. I don't think I think they have to be in Azure AD already for it to work. There's some requirements on the tenant attached page that'll list out all the things that must occur for that to work, but it's not enrolling them in anything. It's registering them as an object in the tenant that you can take action against. So like an Intune enrolled and managed device is an actual object and a device that you're actually managing the object inside of Intune, like that's an entity there. But the tenant attached item is just a pointer to an object that exists inside ConfigMgr, if that makes sense. So it's somewhat of a little disconnect there. But honestly, I don't know if it registers it or not. That's a good question. But the tenant attached docs will have that info, I'm fairly certain.
Awesome. So we have one about using run scripts via the admin service. Somebody says that they haven't found a way to do that yet. Ever do anything there?
The run scripts over admin service. So let's check and see let's check the metadata side of things here and see if run scripts exists, and I think it does. And I know that I tested this in one of the tech previews a while ago. Oh, you know what's happening is you guys are just destroying me right now with the you've given me a DDoS on this thing. So all right, goodbye demo. Thanks for playing. I mean, I suspected that was going to happen. Okay, so yes, run script does work, and so it requires a script GUID to do that. And so in the same way that we ran CM pivot, you would just use the same query language to do wherever it is, to do run script, and then you look for script results. So you capture the operation ID and then do the same kind of looping that we were doing in the PowerShell. So you need to get the script GUID, and I don't know offhand if the scripts, let me see. Scripts, that's a script status. That's not, I was hoping you could query for the script from the list, but I don't believe you can. So you may have to get the GUID from somewhere else, like from your console or something first in order to, oh no, hey, look at that, that's magic. Yeah, so I was wrong. So you can just query script, and when you query script, you can grab the script GUID, so then you could parse this and get it by name and figure out what script you want to actually run, and then you can get the script GUID and then pass that in using the methods I was showing in the PowerShell there, or in the Fiddler even. So you could just do script GUID, do the same kind of deal here that we were doing. Hopefully that makes sense. Ping me later if you've got more questions, but I think I've even shown the demo of that on my site. I know I tried it before.
Awesome. So there's a few others in there, but they all look like probably demo questions, and we're 5 minutes over, so I want to be respectful of folks' time. So I will give you, Adam, all of the questions privately, and you can decide if you want to maybe tweet about any of them. So if you're not following Adam, I recommend that you do so.
Yeah, so that's at AdamGrossTX on Twitter, or if you just email, whatever your easiest method of communicating with someone, someone will get the info to me. So just let me know.
Cool, thanks. So with that, huge thank you to Microsoft, who I don't know, sponsors, maybe too strong of a word, but at least gave us this environment for absolutely $0, which is about the WinAdmins budget for presenting today. So it was perfect. Obviously, a huge thank you to Adam, who somehow does live demos and still makes it seem easy. Presenting is easy with Adam. And then,
yeah, I'm just sweating bullets over here. Yeah. So. Oh, by the way, somebody's asking. They had a follow up on the scripts thing. I just sorry. So it's not that's actually current branch can do it now. So yeah, give it a shot. Give the run scripts a chance in current branch. Anyway, all right, that's enough. Sorry.
Cool. No, it's fine. My last thank you just out to Scott McAllister and Adam Cook from the WinAdmins group, who have been quietly sitting in the background and making sure that things run smoothly in the background and helping with questions and with other things that have been going on. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Chris, and WinAdmins team for having me. This was your inaugural event, so hopefully people will want to come back after this. And like I said in the beginning, sign up for WinAdmins. It's been an incredible boost to my expertise and my friendships and community building and all those things. So go sign up for it, get involved, at least come and say hi. But thank you guys for having me, and just stay tuned because there's going to be more great presenters to come. I know it because we've got a great pile of community people that are waiting to talk about stuff.
Couldn't have said it better. I can't think of anything better to end on. Cool. Thank you very much, Adam. I really appreciate it. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Bye.